So on another topic, gun rights are also front and center after the tragic shooting in Uvalde, Texas. The U.S. right now has had more mass shootings than days in this year. What do you think should be done to prevent these shootings?
Well, the most important thing we can do is to protect our schools. And it didn't work in Uvalde. There was failures there that resulted in deaths of innocent children and 2 teachers. It's a tragedy that struck every heart in America. And so we've got to refocus ourselves on making sure we have the right training, that we've got to make sure that we protect the schools from that kind of a assailant. And there is a current debate, of course, about whether we need to have any restrictions on the military-style weapons, AR-15s, and whether someone who's 18 should be able to acquire that. I applaud our senators for trying to come together in a bipartisan way to see what can work in this environment and what can be successful. But you can't give people false hope. And there's some laws that we can pass that might look good because, well, we're doing something about firearms. But the fact is, there's constitutional issues. We have constitutional rights at stake. And secondly, we've seen time and time again that criminals have access. But there is a case to be made that if we can save one child's life, if we can reduce the risk, then this is something that we ought to be discussing, and hopefully we can come together as a nation.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that senators are looking at the fact that an 18-year-old was able to purchase an AR-15. That was the case in both Buffalo and Uvalde, where it was an 18-year-old with an AR-15. Would you be supportive of legislation that would increase the age limit to purchase these military-style weapons, or put other restrictions on that?
We're going to have to look at exactly where we can come to an agreement on that, and the details of it is very important as to how the weapon is defined. And so I think that is an important thing to look at, and we might be able to come to an agreement on it. California passed that restriction for an 18-year-old buying an AR-15 style gun. This court struck it down as unconstitutional. And so there are some constitutional parameters for this discussion as well. We've got to realize that is not going to solve all of our problems. The Virginia Tech shooting was by single rifle. It wasn't an AR-15. And so these tragedies can happen regardless of the weapon, and so we can't think of that as going to solve all the problems. The result is we must, regardless of what we do, we've got to protect our schools to a greater extent, and the states are going to have to invest more, probably need to have some federal dollars that will be devoted to it as well.
Mm-hmm. And on some other